Welcome back everybody to another quick take video. Now today you can easily tell that we are talking about Midnight Motorist, which is something that I've always kind of wanted to talk about, but I hadn't spent a lot of time researching it beforehand, well, before working on this video, and it's also not a topic that I think would work for a discussion video. Like, there's not enough to talk about for that. So I finally sat down, did some research, and decided to make it just a quick take video because there's really not that much to talk about here. And so here we are. But this video is also going to be a kind of a companion video to my previous problems with FNAF theories video, because there's a few things that don't entirely hold up in terms of like quality checks with people making theories about Midnight Motorist. And so I kind of wanted to cover those, and me personally, I'm not entirely sure which one I believe, whether it's William Afton that we play as in Midnight Motorist or whether it's somebody else. I honestly can't say. I think both sides make sense, and so that's kind of just what we're going to be talking about, and how both sides can make sense but also don't make sense because of contradicting evidence within its own game, I guess. So here we are, and let's get talking about it. So I want to start with talking about playing as William Afton in Midnight Motorist, and there's a little bit of evidence to support this, quite a bit actually, in terms of just in the main Midnight Motorist game in Pizza Sim. So basically when the game starts, it's like later that night, and it's presumed that later that night means that it's the same night as the death of Charlotte, and that you're playing as William escaping from the scene. And there's some evidence to support this with both games having rain, which might not seem like a lot of evidence, but in terms of the fact that there's only really 3 mini games that are kind of like arcade mini games, and 2 of them have rain, it kind of does make sense that they'd be connected and be the same like continuity, I guess. So some other evidence is the car. Now, technically, the car we drive is a slightly more pinkish hue than the other purple cars, but they're all kind of purple cars. So we're driving basically the same kind of car that William Afton drives. And this is also supported in 5 Laps at Freddy's, with the Midnight Motor car having the little Springtrap thingy on the antenna, and the description of the car talking about how it is a great car for somebody who is trying to flee from a crime, which basically perfectly sums up William Afton. So that kind of does point to it being William Afton as the one that we were playing as Orange Guy, which is a bit weird, but maybe it's just there to throw us off. So there's another little bit of evidence for William, and in terms of kind of like solid evidence, that's really about it. There's some other, I would say, more questionable evidence that people use, and also stuff that people just ignore in order to make it work. So some of the more circumstantial evidence is you get the burial ground, I guess you could say, the mound of dirt, and people have gone, well, that's clearly Crying Child's grave, which, I mean, no. Like, that doesn't look anything like a grave to me. There's not any markings, there's not anything, it's just a mound of dirt. So anything of it being a grave, I think people don't understand the concept of a grave. So it's not Crying Child's grave. And people have also talked about how it could be the Twisted Ones, and because the Twisted Ones bury themselves underground in mounds of dirt, and on the surface, it does seem like, all right, that could make sense. You know, an interesting detail of it could be the Twisted animatronics, or it could be the Nightmare animatronics that are like taking the place of the Twisted Ones in the games. But the hard part is that the Twisted Ones bury themselves during the day, and as we can tell, it is a rainy night, but the mound of dirt is still there. It's not a hole, it's a mound of dirt. So the animatronics wouldn't be buried underground at night. And so that kind of also takes out the idea of it being the Twisted or Nightmare animatronics, since they would only bury themselves underground during the day, and it's nighttime. So a little bit of a little bit more I guess, flimsy evidence there. But I don't know. I can't say what the mound of dirt is. I don't have any, like, here's the evidence that I think works. But it doesn't seem like a grave because there's no markings. And there might not be any markings in terms of trying to cover up the lore and exactly what it is. But you would think a grave would have something, but there's nothing there. So I would think William Afton and the family would be awful people if that's where they buried Crying Child, just in the middle of a forest with a mound of dirt. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem very fitting as a grave. Some other, I guess, more circumstantial or weaker evidence is when you get to the house, you go inside, there's somebody sitting on the couch watching TV, and a lot of people assume that this is either Michael Afton or, I guess, the Mrs. Afton. I don't know why I was so confused about what I was supposed to say. Mrs. Afton. And that's who's sitting on the chair. I mean, the only thing is that we don't really know anything about this person, so it could be Michael Afton, but it also could just be some stranger. Like, there's not really any solid evidence to support that it is Michael Afton. People just go, all right, well, I think we're playing as William, so let's make sure that this is Michael Afton, then it has to be. Which doesn't really explain then who's in the room, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But that's sort of basically it for the more circumstantial evidence of supporting William as the person in Midnight Motorist. There's some stronger evidence and there's some weaker evidence, and there's a little bit more, but I'm not going to get into it in this video because I'd be here like maybe all day if I went down a whole tangent rabbit hole about all this kind of stuff. But I wanted to talk about the evidence and circumstantial evidence to support it not being William Afton. So for starters, he's orange, and orange has never been associated with William unless he's in like the Spring Bonnie suit. In that case, it's a little bit more yellow, but he wouldn't be wearing the Spring Bonnie suit out in the rain, so clearly he's not wearing an animatronic suit. It's just supposed to be a different guy because he's orange. So that is also kind of pretty significant evidence, but also can just be kind of thrown away depending on like the actual theory. So he's orange, not purple, kind of a big thing. JR's, which I haven't brought up yet, but it's kind of not known whether it's supposed to be a Freddy's location, which I don't think it is. It is a restaurant, it's not a bar, but I don't think it's supposed to be a Freddy's location because there's no like iconography, there's no anything that shows it being associated with Freddy's at all. So I think it's just some local restaurant that that orange guy likes to attend, and that he's not allowed to be there anymore. We know it's not Fredbear's, because if he was fleeing from Fredbear's, then he would only have to basically walk home, and he wouldn't be driving. Because if Charlotte's killed outside of Fredbear's, then why would he drive past Fredbear's to get back to his house? So JR's is not Fredbear's, and I don't think it's another Freddy's location, but I can't confirm nor deny any of this. So orange guy, then he can drive to his house. And another thing that I didn't really bring up in the William Afton thing, because I feel like it fits more here, is that the idea of the house being the FNAF 4 house makes zero sense, since we know that as Crying Child, he walks from Fredbear's to his house, and even though the layout is kind of similar, I guess, to how it is in Midnight Motorist, there's a bit more of a neighborhood in FNAF 4. There's like a park, there's a playground, there's some more kids around the area. So it seems like he's more in a suburb or like just outside of a city in terms of like the Fredbear's and FNAF 4 house, rather than like off a highway in some who knows where location. So the idea of it being the FNAF 4 house doesn't make sense to me. Now, the Aftons could have moved at some point and that they bought this house and now this is where they live, but it's not the FNAF 4 house because it doesn't line up with anything we saw in FNAF 4 in terms of location wise. Like FNAF 4 even had sidewalks and there's no sidewalks here, so I don't think it's the FNAF 4 house. It doesn't make sense for it to be the FNAF 4 house, even though in its own game, it kind of contradicts itself, but whatever. And the last sort of thing I wanted to talk about in this video is the footprints that we see outside of the window, because I haven't talked about that yet either. So when you try to go into the room of, I'm guessing, orange guy's kid, the door is like locked, he can't get in, so he goes around the outside of the house and he sees that there's a window smash and there's footprints leading away from the house. And so people have often assumed that this is either Crying Child or Michael Afton, more likely, and then that's who's the one that kind of got out and is going to probably the Freddy's location. And other evidence to kind of support this is that there's animatronic footprints outside the window as well. Now, the people who kind of say, all right, well, the animatronic can't be William, I mean, it obviously can be William, though. Like, people are like, oh, well, the spring locks don't work, but you're forgetting the most important part. There was more than one Yellow Rabbit costume, and it wasn't a spring lock suit, aka the glitch trap suit, whose footprints kind of line up quite a bit with the footprints we see outside the window. So, I mean, it could easily be William going, all right, I want to lure this kid out. He didn't stay when he was at Freddy's. I need to get this kid out of here to do my evil stuff, right? I'm William Afton. I'm going to do my William Aftoning. So then he, instead of wearing the spring lock suit, which he knows will kill him if he went out in the rain, he wears the old, like, I guess, sewn suit that he has of Spring Bonnie. And we know that he has worn this to lure kids because we see that in Help Wanted. Now, it's more assumed that that's kind of glitch trap, but we do see William or whoever wearing the Yellow Rabbit suit to lure kids behind into like the parts and service and behind stage, wearing that sewn rabbit suit. So it is something that he does have his hands on and that he will wear on occasion. So it can easily make sense that that's William standing outside the window to kind of be like, hey, come on, let's go to Freddy's, which I don't know what kid would ever do that. Like, if I was just like, it's nighttime, it's dark, it's raining, and I'm like in my room doing my thing, and I look outside my window and I just see like creepy rabbit guy standing outside my window, and he's like, come on, let's go to Freddy's, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going out to Freddy's. So I guess this kid's a lot more trusting than I am, but somebody gets lured out of this house by William or an animatronic. And that's sort of, to me, the biggest evidence that orange guy isn't purple guy, is that it kind of seems more like William would be the one to lure kids out of a house. But I can't ever say anything with 100% certainty because there is still pretty significant evidence to support it being William Afton. So, in conclusion, I'm kind of leaning towards it not being William, but I can't say with 100% certainty because you can't really with anything in FNAF. So, yeah, well, that's kind of it here. Just a few details, a few things that I want to talk about with Midnight Motorist, and I felt this is probably the best place to do it, because I didn't want to make a whole dedicated discussions video to this. But yeah, so that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a little bit of a more theory, but like a bit of a different one, and I would definitely recommend, if you haven't, to check out my main problems with FNAF theories video, since this is also kind of a companion video with that. So I'd recommend going and checking that one out. It's linked in the description if you want to check it out. But yeah, we'll do shameless plugs. My Instagram and channel memberships are down below, so if you're interested in either of those, go check them out. Otherwise, not a big deal. But speaking of channel member, shout out to my channel member. Thank you for being a channel member, and here is your daily shout out, because I do shout outs for all of my members. So if that's something you're interested in, you can become one. Otherwise, again, not a big deal. And yeah, if you guys want to say anything, like if you just want to say hi, or if you have any other like topics that you want me to cover, and it doesn't have to be specifically FNAF for these videos, like if you want me to cover something from Poppy Playtime, or even the dreaded Garden of Banban, then just leave a different topic down below and I can make a quick take video on it. And yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a little bit of a longer quick take, probably one of the longest ones I'll do for a quick take video. But yeah, again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in tonight's live stream, so go check that out as well. And yeah, goodbye.